extremely troubling, and it's a reminder that that was a critical part of the Queen's role, to represent us to regimes all over the world. And every Prime Minister who's spoken about the Queen in the last 10 days has reminded us what a critical part of her job that was, particularly her knowledge and relationship with these world leaders, which they all found an incredibly useful resource.
Worth remarking too on the Abbey itself as it begins to fill with the congregation. The view we were just contemplating then was that of the catafalque on which will rest the coffin of Her late Majesty. Very many of the congregation who have been arriving early this morning are seated in the nave. The choir beyond the great rood screen will be filled, of course, with members of the royal family whose arrival we will witness a lot later. Great ceremonial preparations too for the clergy involved here. We know that, of course, the Archbishop of Canterbury will give the sermon during the funeral service, which will be led by the Dean of Westminster, the Very Reverend David Hoyle. And what a day it is indeed for them to prepare for not only the service for the funeral here at the Abbey, but a little later in the day here at Windsor Castle in St George's Chapel, the service of committal. As dignitaries and indeed foreign royals begin to arrive, I might bring in Hugo to comment on the fact that across Europe in particular, the arrival of the foreign royal families.
We're actually seeing members of the household. We just saw, well, there we see on the screen Tom Botherwell. We just saw the retired Lord Great Chamberlain, the Marquis of Cholmondeley, whose job ceased immediately that the Queen died. He was present at the opening of Parliament carrying the Imperial State Crown, but he has been replaced for this reign by Lord Carrington, son of Peter Carrington. And we also saw one or two ladies in waiting arriving.
So this, as we can see, unmistakably the President of the United States' vehicle. Critical ally of ours, somebody who spoke incredibly fondly about the Queen in the last week. We were lucky to have her, he said, and I think many of you today will say amen to that.
Very delicate operation for all of those who are given the duty for navigating these arrivals in these coming minutes. Who sits where and next to whom, all part of the critical planning for the day. President Biden, of course, one of 14 US presidents during Her late Majesty's reign. Very many notable moments, of course, in recent memory when former presidents have visited here and been made welcome at Windsor Castle, not least, of course, most recently President Biden and his wife Jill themselves, who've both recounted wonderful tales of taking tea with the Queen and her generosity with the cakes and sandwiches provided for them. They've smiled and reflected on that with great warmth in these most recent days. The Very Reverend David Hoyle, Dean of Westminster, a few moments with the President. before they too will be led to their seats.
Chris, maybe this is, as we watch the American president chatting by the Great West Door, Chris, perhaps this is a moment to bring you back in and remind us just how many US presidents the Queen knew and how many governments really relied on her very subtle diplomatic skills and making sure that relationship remained consistently that of our closest ally.
Yes, Tom, I've been struck in recent days just by how many prime ministers, but also how many world leaders have spoken to us about their gratitude for the counsel that they got from the Queen, including Joe Biden, himself of not a young age, but someone who spoke about the great warmth and affection and counsel he got from the Queen that she built up over so many years in that role. And it was a real moment to see him yesterday inside Westminster Hall, standing next to the coffin, paying his respects to the Queen. And he's arriving at Westminster Abbey